I pumped breast milk for the first 6 months of my son's life, 4 months at the NICU, and 2 months at home during the transition. It was an exhausting, demanding, and relentless journey, and by the end of it, I was just so sick of that pumping machine. It is an incredible piece of equipment that helped my son and so many other babies get fed, and I am genuinely grateful for it. But it was just so much physical work for so long. Then it slowly transitioned to full breastfeeding, then to solids. And then there was the end of the era. Hi, this is Never Too Early. Today, I want to share what happened to the breast milk stash that I have built up over those months and what letting it go ended up meaning. I actually never set out to build a milk stash. It just kind of happened. When we stayed at the NICU, the hospital had their own milk storage system. They pasteurized and froze everything I brought to the collection station. When we left the NICU, we brought home about 10 liters of processed breast milk from the hospital storage. 10 liters is a lot. It filled a significant portion of our small freezer at home immediately. So at home, I continued pumping during the transition to direct breastfeeding, and the excess kept going into our freezer. I was producing more than my son needed, and I kept storing it with the vague thought that I would use it one day somehow. About 2 months after coming home, breastfeeding took over fully, but the frozen stash kept sitting there and growing because my body continued producing more than needed for a while. We eventually had to get a small second freezer just for the milk. That's how much there was. Once we were fully on breastfeeding, the stash became something I kept meaning to deal with and never quite did. I'm quite a minimalist in most areas of my life, but with the breast milk, I did have a bit of hoarder mentality. I wanted to hold on to it, just in case. I tried adding it to food when my son started solids, like purees, anything I could think of. But babies don't eat that much when they start solids, so the stash didn't really go down at all. I looked into the option of making soap or lotion from breast milk, which some people do, but every time I considered actually doing it, I was just too tired to take it on during the first few months of motherhood, which was so exhausting to me. So the month passed and the stash was still there. At some point, I realized the milk was past the point where I could even donate it. That option had closed while I wasn't paying attention. So the decision then became simple: use it or pour it away. It was just a matter of time. In summer 2024, a year after we came home from the hospital, I finally took action. I chose one of the hottest days of that summer and I got all the frozen milk bottles out of both freezers, and it was in total 15.5 liters, which is a lot. I put all those little bottles into a baby bathtub and waited for them to melt in the summer heat. It was a strange afternoon, watching all those little bottles slowly thaw. Then, when they were ready, I poured them away, bottle by bottle, down the drain. I stood at the kitchen sink and I couldn't stop reflecting. The emergency birth at 23 weeks, the 4 months in the NICU, learning to pump in those first super confused days, barely understanding what's going on, the lactation specialist who patiently helped me figure it out. The little first milk collections I was so proud of in the early weeks. My son growing from 600 gram into an infant size, 4 months in the incubator, 6 months at home as a newborn, entirely on this milk. The struggles and the gratitude, the confusion and the guidance. It was like the first year of my life with my preemie was condensed into this 15.5 liters of breast milk. It was a bittersweet moment, standing there at the kitchen sink, closing a chapter. But also, I was ready to move on. Pouring away the milk felt like a small clearing ritual, a quiet confirmation to myself that this early chapter was complete. Everything has its own time and place, and it was time to let this baby phase go. If you still have a breast milk stash and aren't sure what to do with it, there are a few options that you can consider. First is adding it to baby or toddler food, or DIY soap or lotion if you have energy for it. And if the milk is still within the storage window, you can donate it to a hospital milk bank, which is one of the most meaningful things you can do with it. Donor milk saves the lives of preemies and other babies who need it. I know this firsthand from our own NICU stay, and I am still so grateful for all those donor moms. And if the time comes to let the breast milk stash go, that is okay too. Pouring it away doesn't erase what it represents. It just means that you're ready for the next chapter. I didn't quite expect that that afternoon was going to stay in my mind for a long time. But now that my child is 3.5, I've come to understand that letting go is something we do again and again as our children grow, and that each time gets a little more natural. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. This is Never Too Early.